all those individual marginal gains together, and that's what you end up with, somebody who is capable of pushing the barriers. And he said he wanted to push himself this weekend. He really wanted to find out where his limit was, and he's come into Berlin this weekend in fabulous shape, and that's what we're witnessing here.
14K, by the way, reached in 39.43. Now, interestingly, just a word of caution, that was a 2:55 split, the slowest of the race so far. Maybe these twists and turns between 14 and 15 kilometers explaining some of that. At 14K, that 39.43 gives them a projected finishing time of 1:59.42. I don't want there to be any disappointment in my voice. That is still way inside the world record, way inside the 2-hour barrier, of course. And there the bottle for Bella, and Kipchoge gets his drink as well. Adola gets his, but that's a difficult side for Adola. And Chris, what a really, really awkward situation for Adola. With 15K done, around 1/3 of the distance run, he's overstretched himself already. He's now having to face that. He's gone beyond the red line, and it's going to be a very, very tough middle third of the race for him.
Yes, it is, and he could end up running a huge chunk of this marathon on his own. Look, there he is, just coming into picture, bottom of your screen, and that is quite a gap already. That's what, 20-30 meters, and this could be very dispiriting for Guy Adola, who is a world-class marathon runner, make no mistake, but this is territory he's never been in before.
42.33 at 15K. In Vienna at 15K was 42.34, so he's a second quicker than in Vienna, and he is, wait for it, over a minute quicker than during his world record split in 2018. He's over a minute faster than he went through 15K, and that was a 43.38. He's just gone through in 42.33 at 15K. This is staggeringly fast. 2:49 for that 15th kilometer. After a 2:55 14th kilometer, he's back on sub 2:50 schedule per kilometer. Tempo, I should say.
Well, this is truly astonishing. We were wondering whether we might see Eliud Kipchoge get inside the world record, and at the moment he is way, way inside that, and even inside sub 2-hour pace.
Dare I say he's flying with that shot? I think the local bird life is staggered at what's going on here. They are at the extreme east of the course now, the southeastern corner of the giant course around the German capital. It's a clockwise course that sort of spirals in on itself at around 30 kilometers. And then they take a left-hand turn and finish up passing through the Brandenburg gate, as Chris said, with just over 350 meters to go. That's a long way away, though.
Now we have a result in the handbikers. The handbikers went off a little earlier today. Josef Fritsch came home in the men's race to win in 64.32. So Josef Fritsch, our first winner on a busy, busy day in the German capital. Wheelchair racers out on the course, women's handbikers as well, and of course the elite men's and women's races unfolding here. Kipchoge then, doing what Kipchoge does best, total concentration, total focus, and it all started with, so many East African boys running to school, there and back. He ran to Kapsabet and used to cycle occasionally to sell milk from his farm at the local market, and that's how he got into running all those years ago. Often ran to school as well and back every day. It's a familiar story, but that's where it all started, and this is what you get when you discover that you have some talent. He certainly has an appetite for hard work, and he could be on his way to increasing and improving his own world record.
Well, there is Eliud. He's 23 years old. He's only a youngster. Great track form. He was 5th at the World Championships over 10,000 meters in the sweltering conditions of Doha back in 2019.
Guy Adola, well, it's not a sight any runner wants to see. The leading group disappearing and vanishing into the distance. That's a dispiriting sight. And Guy Adola, remind you, he's our defending champion here in Berlin. He won here last year.
Well, what compounds the growth of that gap, Chris, is the fact that they've gone through 16K and 45.19. It was at 2:47, the equal fastest split of the race. The 12th kilometre was at 2:47, the 16th kilometre at 2:47. So Adola is seeing a group that is almost accelerating up ahead of him, moving away, even if he's maintaining a pretty strong tempo. The 16K time, 45.19. The 15K time, 42.33. That's a world-class time for 15K on its own.
Well, we don't apologise, actually, for the superlatives, because it's barely credible what we're seeing here on the streets of Berlin today. So, to remind you, through 15 kilometres, and the women also going through 15.
Yes, and Kipchoge making sure she gets her drink there very sensibly. Vivian Kipchoge moving to the front of the group. Absolutely critical. Keep taking those personal drinks, getting the liquid on board from early on. She's sharing it there with Kangogo, who looks like he's her personal pacemaker. She has a little glance around. She looks pretty comfortable, doesn't she? Nice and relaxed. Edessa there, left her picture in that sort of greenish yellow vest. Well, Edessa has no right to be up there moving at this sort of pace. They're on, she's a 2:20 athlete, but they're on sub 2:18 tempo at the moment. Indeed, they're almost sub 2:17 at 14K. They were 2:17.06, and trying to update that split exactly at 15K. There it is, 48.44 at 15K.
Comfortably inside course record. Gladys Chirono went through 15K at 49.08.
Just trying to see Kira Damato in this lead group, and I can't spot her at the moment. Now, she was right at the back of a big pack about 20 minutes ago. She's got a very distinctive dark red, almost raspberry red strip she's wearing, and it does stand out, but I can't see her there, and that shot doesn't really give us much idea of who might be towards the back of this huge pack. I mean, that's still about 30 strong. But Damato, well, she did accept a place in the US team for the World Championships back in July in Eugene at just 2 weeks' notice, when Molly Seidel, the Olympic bronze medalist from Tokyo last year, had pulled out with injury. And there's some people wondering whether or not a very solid run in Eugene, 8th place she ran there at 2:24, I think it was, whether that run is still in her legs and whether she's given herself enough time to recover. 2:23, in fact, she ran back on the 18th of July.
Yeah, it's been quite the year, hasn't it, for Kira Damato. She's got a running shop back home in Virginia. So enthusiastic and so positive in her pre-race conference.
Well, they are still moving along at around 3:14, 3:15 per kilometre in that women's race. The 14th kilometre was a 3:15, the 15th kilometre was a 3:14, and predicted finishing time 2:17.03 at 15 kilometres. So they're going to, if they maintain anything like this, they're going to break the women's record, course record, by over a minute. And they've got plenty of good pacemaking. Now, the advantage, of course, that the women have in mixed races like this, women to the right of picture there, is that they will have those male pacemakers pretty much to the finishing straight. The whole distance they can have pacemakers. It's what Paula Radcliffe enjoyed in London, Chris, when she set her 2:15 world record back in, was it 2003?
2003 it was. 2:51 for the latest kilometre. They are round the Kirche am Südstern, getting towards the southeastern part of the course. They're through 18 kilometres. And, well, for the race itself, it's good to see that Eliud is still in there. He's doing phenomenally well. They're approaching halfway. We wonder whether he'll still be there or thereabouts in the second half of the race. But Tim, question for you, is this good for Kipchoge? Does he really care that Eliud is still there for company?
I'm not sure if he even knows that Eliud is there. I haven't seen him look around yet. I don't think he does care, no, because he's got his pacemakers and he will be preparing himself, Eliud, as they are, what now, 2.5 kilometres or so from the halfway point. He'll be preparing himself for having to take on the role of leading this race, doing the work himself. At the moment he's tucked in there, and there's a slight physical benefit of being tucked in behind pacemakers like that, but it's more a psychological benefit that you get from just latching onto the coattails of somebody in front of you, being dragged along. And the burden is subtle of having to lead, but it nonetheless accumulates. So Kipchoge looking very comfortable, and I have to say, to his credit, Bella, who looks comfortable as well, tucked in there behind the double Olympic champion, the world record holder, the greatest marathon runner in history. And in many respects, Chris, if you look at his overall CV, you can make a good case for Kipchoge being the greatest runner in history. He's a world champion at 5,000. He's run a 350 mile. He's one of the fastest 5,000 and 10,000 metre runners ever. He has the world record marathon. He has the Olympic titles. He's won umpteen marathons. I mean, you know, he lost his second marathon here in Berlin to Wilson Kipsang, and that was because Kipsang set a world record. He lost in London in 2018 because 2020, yeah. Excuse me, and still ran 2:06. It's not like he had an awful time, even though he was 8th, but he had injuries and he had an ear problem, a balance problem. We know that on a cold, wet day in the English capital. So, you know, he gets it right 99.9% of the time.
It is a debate that gets everybody excited whether Kenenisa Bekele maybe is the more complete long-distance runner. It's a debate that will rage, but in the meantime, that is the gap now between the leading two, Kipchoge and Eliud, and the defending champion, Adola, who is disappearing fast into the distance. But Kipchoge, with his game face on, just rock solid, total focus. And I agree, Eliud is also looking very comfortable indeed, just in the slipstream there of Kipchoge. A double Olympic champion. The motivation is there, Tim, isn't it, for the third Olympic title in Paris in 2024. Nobody in the history of running has ever won 3 back-to-back Olympic marathon titles.
No, that's exactly right, and I think what Eliud Kipchoge will focus upon after today is that Paris Olympics. There is Damato. Now, it'll be good to see this in context. He's barrel-chested, is Damato. That's a record in Houston, January 2:19.12. Broke the American record of Dina Castro that had stood for some 16 years. But she has a tough race in her hands. 5 other women here have run 2:20. And is this Damato some way back behind the main pack of the women? And I wonder whether or not she's running a smart race here or having a tough day at the races. Dina Castro, of course, is some way behind her.
That is quite a gap, isn't it, Tim? The bike just speeding up to show us the gap between Keira Damato and the leading group, and that is several hundred meters.
Well, it is several hundred meters, and I'm very surprised, I have to say. Damato's had a fabulous year of racing. She was 3rd in the New York 10K. She won the Boston 10K back in June. She won the US 20K title earlier on this month, on the 5th of September, when it was hot and humid. You know, she doesn't really make bad mistakes, or hasn't had a bad race this year. She won the Falmouth 7 miles back in late August. So every time she's put on her racing face this year, it's come out really well, Damato. Just wondering if today, unfortunately, the highest profile of those races is the one where things begin to go wrong. And the conditions when she set the US record, by the way, in January in Houston, were not ideal. It was pretty hot. It was quite windy too. And she had a bad patch in that race. When she ran her 2:19.12 in January, she had a bad patch between 20 and 30K, and then she rallied and finished strongly. I wonder if today is going to be a race of a similar complexion.
Meanwhile, men approaching 20 kilometres, and the time we're looking out for, 57.56, was the split 4 years ago for the world record. And in Vienna, 3 years ago, 56.47 was the sub-2-hour clocking that Eliud Kipchoge produced. They're almost there, and they're approaching halfway. This will be very interesting indeed to see the 20-kilometer split. It's going to be inside 57 minutes. It is indeed 56.45, 56.45, over a minute inside his own world record pace. And Bellew is still there.
And interesting, Chris, that's 2 seconds quicker than he went through 20K in when he broke 2 hours in Vienna. So 2019 Vienna, 56.47 today, 56.45. He has settled down to a slightly more, shall we say, sensible pace. His 17th kilometer was at 2:51, his 18th at 2:50, his 19th at 2:50, and his 20th kilometer at 2:51. Still way inside his 2018 world record figures.
At what point, we're getting ahead of ourselves again, but it's just an interesting little tease for people watching all over the world. At what point does Eliud feel in his bones that not only is the world record done, but the sub-2-hour marathon is there for the taking? These days, Tim, don't present themselves very often. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
No, that's exactly right. And you were asking earlier, Chris, what has to go right for a world record to be broken? Well, the fact is that everything is right. The weather's perfect. Kipchoge looks fine. His training has been supreme. His last 2 races have been supreme. You know, he won Tokyo back in early March, in the fastest time in the world this year, at a canter, seemingly, and that was after being sent off course momentarily in mid-race. So everything's in place for Kipchoge to get it right here today. And when those circumstances prevail, when all the boxes, critical boxes are ticked, he doesn't fail. He's only had a couple of failures at the marathon, and that's probably failures with a small F. That's unfair. So he doesn't get it wrong. So he knows full well now. The adrenaline will be building quietly in his system. Psychologically, the adrenaline will be in there as well, that things are rolling out just fine. If it was a bit too quick, I think he'd have a word with his pacemakers and say, lads, can we dial it back a bit? But I don't think he's doing that.
No, he hasn't. Haile Gebrselassie had a wonderful image for what you've just been talking about. It's like baking the perfect cake. You need all the right ingredients in the right quantities, in the right mix. And if you get them all right on the day, you will have the most tasty cake you could ever imagine. And is he on his way to baking the perfect cake? Will there be a cherry on top? I wonder, with the sub-2-hour showing. We are approaching the halfway point.
By the way, the women have gone through 17K in 55.07, and that is a projected finishing time of 2:16.47, under 2:17. It'll be one of the quickest winning times in history if any of the women in that lead pack can maintain the tempo they're moving at. 3:10 their 16th kilometer, 3:14 their 17th kilometer.
Another 2:50 showing for Eliud Kipchoge. Halfway, remember, 60.50 was the required pace. And they are inside that. 59.51 through halfway, sub-60. They are flying.
Well, that is what you could call, unofficially, a world record split in a marathon. That, well, you can only say it's Kipchoge-esque. Nobody else is capable of that sort of thing, unless they're in his slipstream. Bellew, they're being dragged along, and all credit to Adola Bellew. He's only a youngster. He's many years younger than Eliud Kipchoge. Whatever happened to Adola Bellew now, in this second half of the race, Chris, he has learnt a massive information from this experience. Look at how he's stretching out those long legs right of picture. He's looking good. I wonder if now he's beginning to feel overstretched, because I sense there's almost been a slight acceleration here from Eliud Kipchoge. You have to say, Chris, and we should whisper this, but I don't want to whisper it because it's so spectacular. Sub 2 hours is on the cards here today in a legitimate marathon. You know, many people have been quite critical of the circumstances of that Vienna run back in 2019. It was a very, very contrived affair, and I have to say I've been one of them. I've been a little skeptical that people say 2 hours has been broken for the marathon. No, it hasn't. It was not a marathon. It wasn't a race. It was a lab rat experiment, and it was brilliant. And Jim Ratcliffe and his Ineos money was behind it, and it did a wonderful job. And if you like, it got rid of a psychological barrier. And sadly, in a way, the world thinks that 2 hours has been broken for a marathon, and it hasn't. But at the moment, it looks like it will be today.
we could be on for something very, very special here in Berlin today. We've been lucky enough to enjoy so many wonderful Berlin marathons over the years, but this could be the best of all of them. This, Mark Milder, watching this as the race director, must be pinching himself. It is scarcely believable. We're into the second half of the race, and just to reiterate, they went through halfway in a scarcely believable 59.51, easily inside world record pace and on for the first ever sub-2 marathon. The handbake women are through, and the winner a few minutes ago, Katharina Müller, coming through in 1:20.59. Katrin Müller over the finish line, so we have our first two finishers of the day. But is this man going to provide the headlines?
Chris, there are two astonishing acts here, two astonishing stories. One is the fact that Kipchoge has gone through the half marathon here in Berlin in under 60 minutes, 59.51. The other story is Damato. I cannot believe he's just cruising along there in the slipstream of Eliud Kipchoge, looking comfortable, well under the hour for the half marathon. And this is a man with a personal best of 2:09. I mean, it is quite staggering, the improvement that Eliud is making here. We know he's got fabulous 10,000 meter speed. He's a 26.53 10,000 meter runner from 3 years ago. He did that actually in Hengelo. This year, though, set a personal best, was only 23rd in Valencia. I say this year, sorry, it was last December. 23rd in Valencia in 2:09.43. But he's now operating at, funnily enough, almost exactly 10 minutes quicker a tempo than that run in Valencia.
And there's no strain. There's no strain at all on Eliud's face. He's looking very comfortable indeed. A very different demeanour to Kipchoge. We're used to the focus and the total commitment from Kipchoge, but Eliud is looking very nice as Kipchoge just moves slightly to the left. He's in the slipstream of the three pacemakers, Koech, Kemboy and Kiplimo. The three Ks are doing their job. And talking of Ks, we're through 22 and we have under 20 kilometers to go until the finish of this race. They're going through Kleist Park. They'll take another left-hand turn and they'll go down to Steglitz, if you're familiar with Berlin, and then make their way. And at kilometer 29, that really marks the start of the long drag home.
Chris, the pace has settled down after building up this massive cushion with a series of sub-250 splits per kilometre. He's gone through 18k at 250, 19k at 250, 20k at 251, 21k was at 252, and 22k at 252. So that is still well within his old splits. The world record schedule required 253 per kilometre. But I think he's probably done this the right way, Kipchoge. He's thrown caution to the wind. So much caution shown, we now know, back in 2018. With far less caution here today, but he's given himself quite a big cushion as he's gone through halfway in 59.51 and a 252 for that 22nd kilometre. And on the women's side, well, still looking very comfortable in the blue there, Viviane Chepkirui, the tiny figure of Viviane Chepkirui. She trains Elite 10 with Joan Melly, the winner of the Seoul Marathon back in mid-April. Melly ran 2:18.04 and she trains with her every day, and she says she feels capable of something similar. She is the athlete in the blue there, Chepkirui, who won Vienna last year. She won Vienna again in April this year in a personal best of 2:20.59, and she was paced in both those races by her husband. There it is, leading women at 20k 64.43, world record 64.11. Forget the world record, I think that doesn't matter. That's not a factor today. The course record and something perhaps below 2:18 is very much the goal.
So we could have stories in both the men's and the women's race today. Sadly, I suspect that if we've got a new world record in the men's race, even a sub-2, I'm afraid that will eclipse anything that these women do today. But it would be brilliant to get a new course record. That is Chirono back in 2018. That was quite a year, wasn't it? Could 2022 go down as the best of the lot. The 48th Berlin Marathon. We're back to full numbers post-COVID. Remember, it was a very different place here last year, and the year before was cancelled, of course, in 2020. Great to see back to full numbers and great crowds on the street. And these pacemakers working really well for the leading women. Damato, quite some way back, with a question mark over how she's feeling.
Another athlete in this pack we haven't mentioned is Gola, that's Cisse Meseret Gola. She's a 2:20 performer. She's one of that pack of 5 who have run under 2:21, but not inside 2:20. Well, I think we're going to see several new members to the sub-2:20 club here today if this race continues as well through the second half as it has through the first half. They haven't yet quite reached halfway, this women's elite field. They will do in the next couple of minutes. 21.1k, of course, is the halfway point, and they will take a great reinforcement from seeing a time under 70 minutes, which is undoubtedly what they're going to see. Indeed, a long way under 70 minutes.
So women approaching 21 kilometres. Course record very, very much still on the cards.
Well, F8 there. That is Tigist Abayachu. She's a 2:22 performer, so she too is entering new territory as they approach the halfway point. There it is, that inflatable arch. Live life to the fullest. This is the first of this winter's Abbott World Marathon Majors, and there it is, 68.13 at halfway. Well, they are knocking on the door of 2:16 territory. Vivian Chepkirui leading with Asefa and Gola and Adesa and Abeachu and Wanjiru. Can you believe 6 women together at about 2:16.30 tempo? That, I think, is unique. I don't think there's ever been a pack of women to go through halfway so tightly bunched, so fast. And the reason is good pacemaking, perfect conditions, and the pancake flat streets of Berlin. Just trying to see the debutantes Wanjiru and Hafdu, from whom so much was expected. Rosmi Wanjiru in particular. I don't think she's up there in this leading group. And perhaps the reason is that if you've never run a marathon before, it's one thing to have a solid run, to run, let's say, by the standards of so many of these elite East Africans, somewhere between, say, 2:20 and 2:25. It's quite a different issue to suddenly be expected to go down a long way below 2:20, and perhaps that massive sort of slap in the face in the debut is too much for Wanjiru today.
Back to the men's race, and you'll notice that we are down to a single pacemaker, and it is indeed Kiplimo, who is now has the responsibility. Philemon Kiplimo has been charged with taking Eliud Kipchoge at least to a world record, possibly going inside 2 hours for the first time. And in that case, we are potentially into the last 50 minutes of this race. Approaching 25 kilometres. We're down in the most southern point of the course, down the Hauptstrasse. There'll be another sharp right turn, and eventually they will start wending their way and winding up for the last 10 kilometres or so back into town.
Well, the world record milestones, Eliud Kipchoge, that 2:01.39 in September 2018. That broke the world record of Dennis Kimetto by an astonishing 1 minute and 18 seconds. That's a world record of Kimetto also in Berlin. Gebre Selassie, 2:03.59, the first ever man under 2:04. Paul Tergat, the first man under 2:05 back in 2003. 2:04.55. And Derek Clayton, of course, well, long ago, he was the first man under 2 hours, 10 minutes, the Australian, 2:09.36.
Yes, 11 world records on this course, 8 in the men's, 3 in the women's race. It is the place to come for world records. Kiplimo, his work is done at 25k. He's done a fine job. The pacemakers are done. It's now Kipchoge and Eliud.
I don't want to sound like I'm being too worrying here, but the pace has dropped. The last 4 kilometers, 22k was at 2:52, 23k, listen, at 2:55. That's outside world record schedule. The 24k at 2:54, that's outside world record schedule, and 25k 2:53. So right on, smack on, 1 hour, 2 hours 01:39 tempo. So maybe it was because the pacemakers were pulling out and tiring, and there was a sort of reset in this little lead group. But there has been a distinct slowing over the last 3 kilometers, just 2 or 3 seconds per kilometer. When you think we were seeing 2:47s and 2:48s and 2:49s, to drop to 2:55 and 2:54 is substantial.
It is. Let's not forget, and let's reiterate again, Kipchoge has been here multiple times before. Eliud behind him has not. This is uncharted territory for him. Kipchoge is exactly where he wants to be. Now then, 2017, Adola, who many people had never heard of, came up on the shoulder of Kipchoge, and we had a thrilling battle, which eventually Kipchoge won. Are we going to see something similar in the latter stages today? Kipchoge, we've suggested, perhaps doesn't mind, doesn't really care whether Eliud is there for company or not. He's got, what, about a 3 or 4 meter lead at the moment. But Kipchoge is never more dangerous than in the latter stages of the race. We still have over 15, 16 kilometers to go. But Kipchoge is looking purposeful. He knows, he can probably feel in his bones, Tim, that this could be his date with destiny today. The 25th of September 2022 could be a day he'll never forget.
I think having Damato Bellehu here, the 23-year-old Ethiopian, tucked in behind him is exactly what Kipchoge needs now. This is always a tough section, this third quarter of a marathon, and Kipchoge just up on his toes, bouncing along, probably getting a little bit of extra adrenaline from the presence of the Ethiopian. He'll be aware he's there, even though we haven't seen him glance around, and that gap growing for the first time, Chris. That's about 6 or 7 meters.
Turning the screw, as he loves to do, approaching 26 kilometers. These are relatively quiet, I say relatively quiet passes of the course, but we've still got decent support out on the streets. This is a course, of course, that Eliud Kipchoge knows so well. Running here for the 5th time, looking to win for the 4th time and draw level with Haile Gebrselassie. This is a masterclass in concentration, in preparation, in fitness, and of course in natural ability.
Kipchoge, by the way, is setting new standards every time he goes through a kilometer split. At 25k, 1:11:07. That was 1 minute and 17 seconds quicker than during his run in Berlin 2018, than when he set the world record. It is, by the way, 8 seconds outside his 25k split in Vienna. So that's beginning to look like a tough ask. That time set in Vienna, 1:59:41. I hope we don't see sub 2 hours slipping away, but that would have been a massive bonus on today's race. The world record is still very much on. Kipchoge beginning to push on and push away from Adola, Chris.
From Eliud, yeah, won 16 out of his 16 out of his 18 marathon races. Just to reiterate, that does include the 2 non-official races in Vienna and also in Monza. You remember that in 2017, the sub 2 it was called.
Well, Bellehu may well be on here for something very special, because while he's letting Kipchoge, or he's having to let Kipchoge go, because he knows he's got some 16 kilometers to go, he's still running strongly. It's not like he's folded. He hasn't thrown in the towel, so to speak. Aside from letting Kipchoge go, he's still moving well. Is Bellehu up on his toes, bouncing along. That's not as much of a bounce as Eliud Kipchoge, and many people would look at Kipchoge's biomechanics and say he's bouncing around so much. The top of his head, look at the top of his head, the way it's bouncing around. Now, in the ideal world, and of course some bounce is unavoidable, in the ideal world there's very, very little vertical movement of your centre of gravity. You keep it nice and fluid, and far be it from me to criticise the biomechanics of Eliud Kipchoge and the perfection of his stride. But maybe it's the footwear, maybe it's the shoes. He's bouncing along like he's only just come out of the blocks.
He is. It looks effortless. We haven't seen him smile yet, which means he's probably not hurting just yet, but he will be hurting, make no mistake. But this is what he's trained for. This is what he's prepared for over the years. A reminder, 37 years old, he's 38 in November. This is his 19th marathon, full marathon. Eliud on for a massive personal best. Adola is a distant third at the moment, through 27 kilometers.
And the women have gone through 23k, as we see that swing right there for Kipchoge, and he's moving away with every stride now.
2:56 last kilometre, so further evidence that things are slowing down a little bit. 2:56.
Yeah, and that's the slowest of the race so far. 27k, 1:16.56.
Meanwhile, it's a perfect 7 for Marcel Hug in the men's wheelchair race. 6 times Berlin winner, and now a 7th for the silver bullet. He's come through, and he really has made this event his own. 1:24.56 the winning time today. Congratulations to Marcel Hug, the world record holder, winner here in Berlin for the 7th time.
The loneliness of the long-distance runner, Eliud Kipchoge, in complete isolation now. The gap behind him is growing, there's no doubt about that, and Damato has been quite mighty, hanging on to the coattails of the Olympic champion, the world record holder, but he's had to let him go. Now there are about 15 kilometers to go. We shouldn't predict too much of what acts will unfold over this next 43, 44 minutes. And Damato is not too much out of focus at the moment as we see that shot. But Kipchoge looks like he's heading for victory. He doesn't get it wrong, Chris, generally. Whether it's a track race, a cross-country race, don't forget back in early 2003, he won the World Junior Cross-Country and then never really bothered with cross-country again. It's like he said to himself, well, I've ticked that box, I think I'll stick to the track. And he did many, many years of great track racing, many fast times, then moved on to the roads. So he has, in effect, become one of that select group of athletes who's a man for all surfaces.
Yes, and in the debate about who's the greatest of all time in terms of the marathon, there's no contest. It quite simply is Eliud Kipchoge. But when you widen it, Tim, to cross-country and track achievements, does Bekele shade it for you, or would you still put Kipchoge ahead?
No, I think you have to say Bekele shades it because of the umpteen world cross-country titles, Olympic titles at 5,000 and 10,000, world titles galore, the second fastest man in history at the marathon. He has, he won his debut in Paris, ran a very, very quick time a few years back, did Kennedy Bekele. On balance, yes, you have to say that because he's spread his skills, his talent across all the surfaces, and over so many years as well, his longevity quite remarkable too. Maybe Kipchoge has to doff his cap to Bekele.
Should just also reflect that here in 2019, when Bekele came within 2 seconds of the world record, there is Klaus. Fist pumping again, he's done a fine job as Bottle Klaus, so well done. More nutrition, more fluid taken on by Kipchoge. Yeah, Bekele went through the first half in 60:48 here in 2019. That was ridiculously fast, and it wasn't a surprise to see him suffer in the latter stages of the race. Kipchoge then, on the streets of Berlin, cutting loose and out on his own. Eliud in second place. There is Adola, now back in joint third place, and alongside him Bethwell Yegon, who was the runner-up here last year. And Tim, if you look at the cadence, look at the speed these guys are running, and contrast that to the rate and the pace at which Eliud Kipchoge is running, it's like a different race.
Totally different race, totally different tempo, and yes, the wheels have come off there. I think we can relatively safely say for Adola. Eliud Kipchoge lapping up the prey. the size of the crowds along much of the course grow through the morning and are quite immense. Fantastic running this from Kipchoge Bella, who this is perhaps the biggest shock of the day in many respects. A man who ran a personal best of 2:09 earlier on this year. Where did this come from, this performance from Bella? Yes, he's got many kilometres to go yet, but he's holding together pretty well, Chris, whereas we've seen what the first half of the race, the tempo did to the defending champion Adola. It's destroyed him.
It has indeed, yeah. It's a sad sight to see for Guy Adola. But, just signs now that Eliud is also starting to struggle. The shoulders are slumped. No such problem there for Eliud Kipchoge. Approaching 29 kilometres. And after the 29-kilometre mark, they will turn right. And that will take them on the start of the long drag home. They'll have 12 kilometres to go when they hit 30. The strain for me, Tim, just starting to appear on Eliud's face.
No, I think you're dead right, and that's forgivable. But that gap is growing slowly, isn't it? I mean, I said a few minutes ago it's growing with every stride from Kipchoge. Well, let's say every half stride, because Kipchoge Bella is probably about 60 metres down. That foreshortening effect is deceptive, maybe less. Kipchoge, I think at the moment, is just consolidating, Chris. Checking his splits, he's gone through 28k with a 2:59, and that came after a 2:57. Now that's a little bit worrying, because that is a long way outside what was required. His 29th kilometre has just come up, it was a 2:53, so back on track.
Yeah, consolidating, or is he struggling? Doesn't look to be, and we know how strong he can be in the latter part of the race. And there's the smile. There's the trademark smile, which appears when he's starting to hurt. He's working so hard, really hard.
Well, his last 3 kilometres have been 2:57 through the 27th K, then a 2:59. That was a little bit worrying through 28k, and then 2:53 at 29k, exactly on schedule for his old world record. Now 30k is approaching, as you can see. It'll be in a couple of minutes' time. But 30k during his world record is 1:26.45. But he was flying through the second half. And in many respects, it looks like the unfolding of this race today is sort of an inverted version of what he ran in 2018. A very cautious first half and then a lightning quick second half. Today, his first half has been simply science fictional. 59.51 through halfway, and this is a considerably slower series of splits that are unfolding through this third quarter of the race.
So the leading men approaching 30 kilometres, and that is a psychologically important mark to reach in the race. Eliud Kipchoge out on his own. That 2:53 last kilometre significant, because there had been building evidence that maybe, just maybe, the first half of the race was catching up with him. The crowd's building all the time. And Eliud Kipchoge, impossible is nothing, it says on his bib. And who better to demonstrate that than this man, one Eliud Kipchoge.
So easy to be wise after the event, isn't it? But I was, well, I am so shocked at the extravagance of the first half. 59.51. Now, I can only think that he sat down with his coach and his so knowledgeable manager, Jos Hermans, and his other advisors, his coach, Patrick Sang, and worked out what was the optimal tempo, the optimal way of letting this marathon unfold. And he wanted to go through halfway in under 60 minutes. But many would say that was throwing caution a bit too far to the wind after last year's 61.06 first half. There he is, through 30k, 1:25.40.
Well, still very comfortably indeed inside world record pace. Over a minute inside world record pace. So just over 12 kilometres to go for Eliud Kipchoge.
2:51, that 30th kilometre, Chris, 1:25.40 when he went through 30k In 2018, it was 1:26.45, so he's got over a minute's cushion, as you say, but he did really blast through the next 10 kilometres 4 years ago. During his run in Vienna in 2019, he went through 30k in 1:25.11. He's 1:25.40 today, so he's almost 30 seconds outside that. So forget the figures from Vienna, I think, and increasingly I'm beginning to think we need to forget sub 2 hours.
I would agree exactly with that. I think that's gone, and I think he probably knows it. There we are. There's the pacing over the last few kilometres. 2:48. He's right back on it. And we know how strong he can be and is in the last stages of the race. He will smell the opportunity there. He can visualise going through the Brandenburg gate with less than 400 metres to go. He's got a little way yet, but he knows these streets so well. He's raced here on so many occasions. He's won every time he's raced here, bar one on his debut. So as we suspected, this is all about Kipchoge and the clock. Our little feature at the top suggested exactly that. The race, in terms of his opponents, has gone. He's broken the resolve of everybody. And now it's just this man out on his own, pounding the streets, the tarmac of Berlin. So the wheelchair women, in the last few minutes, we have a surprise result. Manuela Schär was the red-hot favourite, of course. It was a Swiss victory, but it was Catherine de Brunner coming home. That is quite a win for the Swiss. 1:36.47 on her debut. So well done to Catherine de Brunner.
Well done to Eliud Kipchoge too for entertaining us in spectacular style. Kipchoge-esque style. Nobody else can do this. Nobody else has ever done this. He has never done this. He is in new territory. This is where he is now operating in the dark, so to speak. We've said that he learned so much back in 2018 and through that run in Vienna in 2019, but he's in new territory.
4 women still shoulder to shoulder.
And in a way, Chris, it's regrettable, isn't it, that Kipchoge is, and justifiably so, very much the main act today. But actually, what's happening in this women's race is the better race, so to speak. At the moment in the men's race, it's Kipchoge against the clock. In this women's race, we have a real battle here between great athletes. And these 4 locked together. Pacemakers, of course, helping them along at a nice steady tempo. It's a more controllable way of being able to run your race. There's the course record through 27k, 1:28.51. As you can see there, 1:40 inside that at 27k. Their time 1:27.11. So they are surely... Somebody from this group will hang on, even if 2 or 3 of them have a bad time. Somebody in this group will hang on to smash the Berlin course record on the women's side and give it a long overdue improvement.
Yeah, this could be a fascinating finale for the women's race. Should mention also that Kira Damato's main aim of the day was to try and lower her own US and area record, not necessarily win the race. Of course, she wanted to win the race ideally, but I think her main motivation was to come here and try and just take some more time out of that American record that she took from Dina Castor earlier this year. Dina Castor, just to reiterate, is in the field. She is in the race here today, 49-year-old, competing here in Berlin for the first time, completing her bucket list of all 6 world marathon majors.
You're exactly right to point that out, Chris, because we've talked about Damato being the pre-race favourite, but I think there was almost like a dam due to burst with 5 athletes behind her in this women's lineup as they stood in the line an hour and a half ago, with so many athletes having run under 2:21 but not under 2:20. So there was huge Ethiopians and Kenyans, and it is unfolding to plan for them at the moment. There is the little figure of Gola, Cisse Meseret Gola. She's a 2:20.50 athlete, and she's on schedule to break her personal best by about 3 minutes here today. Now, that was interesting. I wonder if that was telling. Vivian Chepkirui there in blue, right of picture, who has looked like the dominant figure throughout the race so far. She's back now in 4th place, behind 3 women ahead of her, and she had a little glance over her shoulder. And that, to me, suggests she's a bit worried. She's focusing on who might be coming up behind her to catch her rather than sticking with these three and catching them. Tigist Assefa is the athlete who looks most likely at the moment, and this would be a meteoric improvement. Her personal best is 2:34.01. She's operating at a tempo something like 15 or more quicker than she's ever run before. I mean, it's mysterious, but it's also astonishing.
It is astonishing. There's something about the streets of Berlin that bring out the best. But of course, we should also mention, Tim, the obvious point that all these athletes will have been training at altitude until a few days ago, so they get maximum benefit from coming down to sea level. The additional red blood cells, of course, oxygen carrying, and the full effects of that being seen here in both the men's and the women's races today.
No doubt about it. Chepkirui, in only her third marathon, is going to struggle to maintain her winning streak. She's won her two previous efforts, both in Vienna. Vienna in September last year, and then Vienna last April. Both of them victories. Her debut victory was a 2:24 performance, then she improved to 2:20 by some 3.5, because at 28k she's got some 14 kilometers to go, and she's beginning to struggle. She's having to let those athletes ahead of her go, and I'm not sure it's because of an acceleration, Chris, so much as she is struggling to follow that blue line down the middle of the road, the three blue lines, and keep with them.
Yes, and the pacemaker, as you can see, is just looking behind, showing a little bit of concern through his body language. Back to the women in just a moment, but how is Eliud Kipchoge getting on? Well, he's getting on swimmingly well, of course he is. And he is, well, inside half an hour of running left in this race. It's Kipchoge against the clock, as we suspected it would be. He's heading towards kilometer 33. He's up, approaching Oliver Platz, and then he'll turn right onto the famous Kurfürstendamm, Kudamm, and then on towards Tauentzienstraße, Potsdamer Platz, and then very familiar landmarks in the centre of Berlin. There is Eliud, who's had a brilliant race today. He's definitely the second story of the men's race today. Keeping an eye on the latest split. He was in 240, 250 odd territory, 256, 259, then he came back with a 253 and then a 248 for the latest kilometre split at 33.
Well, that's right. There's quite a bit of seesawing in Eliud's running at the moment. You know, he's been going down 250, 253, and then you get the anomaly of a slower one. That 33rd kilometre at 253. The previous one is a 252, so he's bang on his old world record schedule per kilometre, but his 31st kilometre was
by a single second. That is a massive improvement for me. It's a big achievement, but you get the sense that he came here to Berlin this weekend wanting to take a massive chunk out of that world record. I think we can safely say that the sub-2 hour possibility has gone. It was on for the first half of the race. That has gone. It's now a question by how much Eliud Kipchoge will break the world record. He could still blow up, but he very rarely does. We've never seen it in a race in all his marathons that he's done in his career so far. There's always time for it to happen for the first time, but knowing what we know about Kipchoge, it's unlikely.
Well, Chris, for those viewers who have joined us in the last few minutes, let me remind you that Eliud Kipchoge has gone through halfway today in 59.51 in the Berlin Marathon. That is 1 minute and 15 seconds quicker than 2018 when he broke the world record, his last appearance here in Berlin. And I think, having been overly cautious back in 2018, he may look back on today and go, with his team, we were a little bit under-cautious today. I'm trying to find the right word for it.
Gung-ho.
Just a little bit too brave.
Gung-ho, yeah.
59.51 at halfway, and now things are beginning to slow. His second half is going to be considerably slower than his first. And like I said 10 minutes ago, there's an inverted version of 2018 unfolding today, and he hasn't got that balance quite right today. I think he'll want to come back and get that balance right, hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely. So many different ways to win a marathon and so many different ways to try and break the world record. It's the finishing time, of course, that matters most. Just to remind you, in 2018, his splits were 61.06 for the first half and then 60.33 he came home in the second half. So a negative split. That is not going to happen today because, as Tim was explaining, of the aggressive nature of the first half, 59.51. It's going to be a slower second half. The question is, by how much? And by how much will he break the world record? Approaching 35 kilometres. That will give us yet more information. We've had that virtual world record line, which we've been able to bring you a couple of times from our helicopter. So thank you for that, for the extra dimension, just to feed into how this race is unfolding. He hasn't changed in demeanour at all. The shoulders still nice and high, still got those arms working. He is breaking out into an occasional smile, and once again, bang on cue, he does exactly that. It's when it's hurting. And this is almost masochistically, Tim, is when he loves, this is what he does. This is what he gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning for. Because it hurts. Of course it hurts. It's hard.
Well, there is Damato Bella, he having to survive these last few kilometres. Probably the best way of describing it. He's surviving it very well after the continual pummeling handed out to him over the first 30k. He has survived incredibly well since. He's not moving anywhere near 250 per kilometre tempo, but he's moving at a pace that will see him break his personal best by many, many minutes. Hard to believe that he only ran 2:09 earlier on this year as a personal best, because for, well, about an hour and a half here, going on an hour and a half, he was running at a tempo some 10 minutes quicker than that. I mean, that is just a ridiculous statistic. Kipchoge looking good.
He is looking very good. 1:41.12 was the split 4 years ago. He's over a minute inside his own world record pace at 35k. 7.2k to go. Eliud Kipchoge, the world record is still on.
World record is on there, and let me tell you that at 30k in the women's race, the time 1:36.40. That was a 3:05 split. They're on schedule for 2:15.57. Their time is getting quicker. It's coming down in the women's race. The projected winning time, there has been an acceleration. That's why Vivian Chepkirui was dropping back. There has been an acceleration in that women's race. 3:08 and 3:05, their last 2 kilometres.
There's an injection as well. I think there's an urgency now about Eliud Kipchoge. He can sense he's into the last 7 kilometres of this race. He's up on his toes. The cadence is good. The body language is excellent. He's just gone past the Memorial Church, the Kaiser Wilhelm Gedächtniskirche.
Do you know, Chris, if I didn't know it better, I'd say you speak reasonable German. That's fantastic pronunciation.
There it is, that iconic war-damaged church looming into view for Eliud, who is having the day of his life. And he'll be able to say, I was there with Eliud Kipchoge at halfway at 59.51. That's something to tell the grandchildren, regardless of where he ends up finishing this race today.
Well, this astonishing performance from Kipchoge is pinging out around the planet. It'll be headlines tomorrow, and rightly so. People in Australia are watching. Many Kipchoge fans down in Australasia loving the way this race is unrolling, and loving this women's race and the way it's becoming a real race, as opposed to what is, quite frankly, a time trial in that men's contest. I say contest, the men's edition. It's Kipchoge against the clock. Here you can see the leading women are on 1:39.52 at 31k. The world record 1:39.29. They are not so far because of the acceleration in the last 2 or 3 kilometres outside breaking 2:15 and perhaps even world record schedule. The gap between them and the world record at 31k, remember, with 11k to go, a long way to go, 23 seconds. Couldn't be, could it? Couldn't be. 2 world records in one day?
Don't be greedy.
I know. All right, dial back.
Goodness me, this could be a day to remember in Berlin 2022. 32 kilometres for the women. Eliud Kipchoge well on his way to a world record, and that is some impressive injection of pace there from Asefa, leading that duo.
Well, Asefa is a surprise package here today. She looks so calm, so comfortable, and yet running at a tempo some 18 minutes or so quicker than she's ever run before. It is astonishing with a capital A.
There is Nollendorfplatz. The men making their way towards Potsdamer Straße. Another very significant landmark, Potsdamer Platz. And from there, it's just around 4 kilometers. The crowds, I can tell you, we are on the finish line here, just beyond the Brandenburg gate, waiting for Eliud Kipchoge to arrive in the next, 15 or 16 minutes. And Eliud Kipchoge, no doubt about it, barring any major accident, is going to win this race, that's for sure. At the moment, he's going to do it in a new world record time.
Well, Chris, his time at 35k, just to go over that again. A few minutes ago, 1:40.07. During his world record in 2018, it was 1:41.12, so he's got a 65-second cushion at 35k, but he did fly through this next few kilometers 4 years ago. How will that virtual Eliud Kipchoge of 4 years ago, who is about
uma excelente presença nas grandes competições e efetivamente aqui conseguir manter-se num ritmo impressionante. Eliud Kipchoge claramente na frente, aqui com toda o conjunto, todo a sua entourage a trabalhar e a treinar para estes grandes momentos, para estas grandes performances. O atleta keniano aqui conseguir manter-se, manter viva essa presença na frente da corrida, com então essa confiança que o ritmo lhe vai dando na frente da corrida. Recorde do mundo que certamente durará durante décadas. Tal a vantagem que Kipchoge mostra em relação a todos os seus adversários. Será de facto um dos melhores, se não o melhor maratonista de sempre na história do atletismo. Entretanto, isto ainda são atletas que estão prontos para mais uma vaga de partida e veja-se só essa grande diferença nessa participação dos atletas. E já agora refira-se a presença de um grande futebolista brasileiro, um dos nomes mais consagrados do futebol, bem conhecido também por ter competido em Itália e no Real Madrid. O Kaká é um dos competidores desta Maratona de Berlim. Foi ele também apresentado pela organização. Kaká, então, um dos 45.000 corredores esperados esta manhã em Berlim. Este é mais um ponto de música da maratona, então, aqui a celebrar provavelmente mais um recorde mundial obtido em Berlim, e já são muitos e significativos, já falámos neles no princípio desta transmissão. Muitos recordes aqui batidos. 11 recordes então registados, 2 femininos. Entretanto, Tigist Abayasu a ficar para trás, Tigist Sefa a seguir na frente da corrida. É ela quem vai então na liderança e vai com um ritmo bem mais forte neste momento. Chegamos a ter uma diferença de 30 segundos para o recorde mundial e neste momento já está a 18 segundos mais lento que o recorde mundial. Tigist Sefa, essa atleta que está aqui a competir, uma atleta de 28 anos de idade, nunca correu abaixo de 2 horas 30 e está aqui a fazer um registro abaixo, está aqui a prometer um registro abaixo das 2 horas e 20. É de facto uma excelente participação da atleta etíope Tigist Sefa. Foi quinta também na meia maratona de Valência em 2019. Uma atleta que tem vindo a subir na distância. Ela que ainda participou nos Jogos Olímpicos do Rio de Janeiro em 800 metros. Agora aqui então a surgir nestas provas de estrada. Aliás, a grande alteração track, about 7 or 8 laps of a running track, and Kipchoge will be home and dry. There he is, he's just gone through 39k, and as you said quite rightly, Chris, just passing our hotel on the right of picture, the Mall of Berlin. It's rather a useful hotel if you like a bit of shopping. You're built into the same complex as an entire shopping centre. But Kipchoge here needs to dig deep as never before.
Under 10 minutes of running.
I was going to say 37 years old. I suppose his most astonishing quality, Chris, in many ways, and what has enabled this fabulous streak of marathon wins, is his ability to stay uninjured, just to keep accumulating fitness, to build and build and build year on year. And that is the key for the majority of elite athletes. Most careers end because of injury. They don't end because of age, they end because of injury. And if you can avoid those injuries, of course you can keep going through your 30s, your mid-30s, into the years approaching 40, which is what this man has done. It's what Kenenisa Bekele has done. It's what Haile Gebrselassie has done.
How many more marathons, competitive marathons, do you think we'll see from this man?
I think it would be unfair to put a number on it, because he prepares so well, so diligently. You know, this is his first marathon since early March. He gets it right again and again. And people used to say years ago that there's a finite number of marathons in your legs. That's just not true. He might have another 6 or 8 good marathons in him if he plays his cards right. I think a lot of people are saying he's got 3 or 4. Who knows? There it is, leading men, 151.42, Chris, at 39k. The world record, 152.26. That cushion has come in under less than a minute for the first time.
Yes, it has. It's being chipped away at, but he should have enough.
Black belly, who in the purple shorts there, just tucked in behind Kipchoge.
Yeah, Adola, a curious marathon runner. As we mentioned, he had that brilliant burst onto the scene back in 2017. Then he had a number of years of illness and injury, something of an enigma, really. He was due to race here, Adola, back in 2019. He withdrew quite late with injury. It's only his 5th marathon. So when you think that Kipchoge has got all those marathons in his legs over almost 2 decades, there's the difference in class. And to think that Kipchoge is still doing this at the age of 37, he turns 38 in November, and he's already saying quite openly that he wants to retain his Olympic title in Paris in 2024. And I just wonder, Tim, without wanting to retire the great man at all, yeah, we have to accept he's in the twilight of his career. He's still at his very best. There's a limited number of marathons that he's got left in him. Paris 2024, nobody's saying that will be his last, but he's also said that he wants to run Boston and New York. Drink station coming up. We might see another sight of Klaus. Here we go.
No, that's exactly right. Klaus Henning Schulke, the 56-year-old Berliner.
Bottle Klaus.
Never has so much fuss been made about a man giving a drink to another man.
Indeed.
But there it is, bash. Gets it right, celebration, punches the air on the bike, and on to the next marker.
He's so enthusiastic. He absolutely loves it. Oh, steady as you go.
Oh dear, I love it, I love it. It's a part of the support act for Kipchoge, who I like to describe as being the point of a big, powerful, beautifully sharpened lance, and behind him the shaft of the lance, the spear, is a massive team of personnel. Massa, coach, physiologists, training partners, family, of course. He has family, he goes back to at weekends, spends a week at the Kapsagat training camp. It's almost like a 5 to 9 Monday to Friday job, except of course he does train at weekends as well.
Yeah, his wife and 3 children. Grace, his wife, not here in Berlin this weekend. They'll be watching on television. Eliud was very keen to stress the importance of the team. Patrick Sang has put this fabulous team together, as Tim was just mentioning, and they are all here. Now then, here we are. World record splits at the moment after 9 kilometres, 22 seconds inside. We should stress that these are based on average times, the average split per kilometre achieved in 2018. But that's the situation so far, and we are approaching 10 kilometres.
And Chris, they've gone through 9k in 25:34, and they've hammered that 9th kilometre at 2:48 again. So the 7th kilometre at 2:48, the 9th kilometre at 2:48, those are the 2 quickest so far. The 8th kilometre was at 2:53, but maybe 1 or 2 of those seconds can be accounted for by the twists and the turns, the minute undulations. This is a fabulously flat course. This is why it's the world record course. What stands out perhaps is a bit of an anomaly is that the women's course record is, in inverted commas, only 2:18.11, when the world record is over 4 minutes faster than that by Bridget Kosgei in Chicago 3 years ago.
He looks so comfortable. Well, it helps to relieve the pain, and you have to be able to push beyond the pain barrier. He also said, he likes the word push, he said, I want to push myself, and if you want to push yourself in a race like this, you have to come to Berlin. It's the only place to come. He could have gone to New York, he could have gone to London, but he was in good shape. All the numbers were coming back to suggest that he was running quickly, and he decided that the world record, beating his own world record, was more enticing than going to New York. 3:10. This will be the best marathon we've ever seen in a competitive race, and the crowd's building all the time.
And there is the hint of a smile there, Chris. You'll never know if it's a half smile, half grimace from Kipchoge as he negotiates this left-hand turn. I sense there is a slight upping of his game. I think he is now prepared to redline it and push hard through this next couple of minutes.
Onto Unter den Linden, that most famous of roads. He'll have the Brandenburg Gate in his sights. The lime trees on Unter den Linden flanking either side, and there it is for the first time. There is the Brandenburg Gate, that's the target, and beyond there, it's less than 400 meters to go. What a moment this is for Eliud Kipchoge. Let's keep an eye on the clock. We will tick round to 2 hours exactly. There's a reminder of the world record as it stands. 2:01.39. It's not a question of whether Eliud Kipchoge will break the record, Tim. It's a question of by how much.
Well, when he broke the world record 4 years ago, Chris, it was the biggest marathon world record advance in over 50 years. You have to go back to Derek Clayton to find such a big improvement. 1:18. He took off Kimeto's world record. He's going to take another big chunk of his own world record here today. It'll be 15 out of 17 victories for Kipchoge.
One more little dogleg to negotiate. The crowd's going crazy. There is the Brandenburg Gate, and the sunshine has come out in Berlin. We are witnessing something very special indeed here. He goes through the arches in just outside, it will be 2 hours. 2:01.39 is the target. He's going to smash the world record under the famous arches of the Brandenburg Gate, built in 1791. And from here, 352 meters to go. Less than 60 seconds of running. It's less than a lap of the track. All those early starts, all those endurance runs, the tempo runs, the sacrifices that he's made have all come down to this. His wife and children are watching back home in Kenya. The crowds are going crazy. It's history unfolding here on the streets of Berlin in the sunshine. The double Olympic champion is the greatest marathon runner we have ever seen in the history of the event. He's going to get inside the world record. It won't be by a minute, but it will be an appreciable chunk. He has done it again. This is superhuman. This is road running from a different planet here in Berlin in 2022. Eliud Kipchoge smiles for the last time. Let's keep an eye on the clock, just outside 2:01. Eliud Kipchoge is a history maker in Berlin. Yet again, he has done it. The world record has gone, and now he can celebrate. And that is simply stunning. A warm embrace from Patrick Sang, his long-term coach. And the greatest marathon runner the world has ever seen has produced the fastest marathon the world has ever seen.
This man leaves you scrambling for superlatives again and again. Why did we ever doubt him? There have even been whisperings from one or two people who claim to have been in the know in the last few days that the world record would not go today. Well, more fool them, more fool us for giving any credibility to those opinions. Because Eliud Kipchoge knew. He knew all along, didn't he, Chris? But he didn't get things exactly right 4 years ago. I don't think he's got it exactly right today. I mean, let's work out his second half. His first half, 59.51. His second half is something like 61-17, there or thereabouts. It's an absolute flip. It was a good race, it was a lovely race, but it wasn't a perfect race.
It's astonishing to think that we're still nitpicking here, and we don't need to be uncharitable, but there is still room for improvement, and that's what makes this so exciting. But let's just enjoy these pictures and enjoy Eliud Kipchoge's moment.
But Chris, as an athlete, it was half decent a few years back. I used to finish races on my knees. This man looks like he could go round another 5K. I mean, he's recovered so quickly. He is a phenomenon in the world of sport, which his uniqueness transcends the barriers between road running and other sports, other disciplines, other endurance disciplines. This is Kipchoge, who is, in many respects, on the wider scene of all sport, quite unique.
So Eliud Kipchoge is home in a new world record. This is Mark Correa. We haven't seen much of him today. Number 5. Second place, Eliud, but Mark Correa has rallied here and is going to be very close to his personal best, 2:05.49 before today. Well, this is quite a rally in the second half of the race for Mark Correa. This is his Berlin debut, it was his first ever World Marathon Major, and at 37 years old, this is turning out to beat him, something of a day for the 30-somethings. You're never too late.
Well, he's going to be very close to his personal best, as you said, Kiss. 2:05.49 from that win in Paris 7 years ago. Does he know it? I think he's just going to be just outside it, isn't he? About 70 metres to go.
He's hurting. Mark Correa coming second in Berlin in 2022. And maybe now he just realised that he's just outside his lifetime best. Second fastest time in his career, 2:05.50 something. He's our second male finisher home behind Eliud Kipchoge.
But we know he's been passing bodies again and again, Chris, as Mark Correa, because what on earth happened to Adola? We've hardly seen Germa Gebreselassie the whole race, and Damlak Bellehu, where's he gone?
There is Abate as well. Chumba finishing strongly. So they're finishing pretty thick and fast, but the margin of victory by Eliud Kipchoge over 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes in fact. There is Bellehu just finishing now. He really paid for that ridiculous pace in the first half of the race.
Well, Kipchoge from Korea, from Abate, the 1, 2, 3 in the men's race. But in the women's race, the story is about this young lady, and quite astonishing it is. Tigist Assefa, let me tell you that her track ability is pretty special too. She's run 54 for 400. She's a 1:59 800-meter runner. She has no best for 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 on the track. So she appears to have gone from being a sub 2-minute 800-meter runner in 2014 to a 67-minute half marathon runner this year. That is some leap. You could call it a leap of faith almost, because she's not bothered with the longer distances on the track. The 28-year-old, as she is now, Tigist Assefa, she's gone straight to the half marathon and the marathon. She ran 2:34 in Riyadh back in March. 7th she was there in 2:34, and that run in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia put her in a solid national standard category, not really international standard, 2:34, but now she has broken into the very highest level of world class, and she's going to go a long way under 2:20 here today. It is an improvement, the likes of which I don't think I've ever seen. To go from being outside of world class, nowhere near world class, frankly, to one of the quickest 3 or 4 athletes in history will be unique.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? She was not being talked about as a potential winner today, Assefa, no doubt about it, but she's found something from somewhere. The training must have gone very well indeed. She's got that slightly unusual flick of the arm, the left arm that just goes out from the body outwards. 2:08.42 through 40 kilometers.
2:08.42 at 40k, and we'll just grab our pacing charts and tell you what that puts her on for the full distance. It'll bring her home in under 2:16. She's heading for a 2:15 performance. She will, I think, on the back of this, probably become the 3rd fastest woman in history. The Berlin magic is worked yet again. Berlin perfect, the conditions today. Look how hard she's pumping with the arms too. There's a freedom, a lovely relaxed rolling of the shoulders and the arms there that makes you think she's a track runner. You can see why it works now, can't you? Slight forward lean and enjoying this. She's got the bit between her teeth. She's got about 6 minutes of running to come. Could she really break 2:16? Wouldn't that be something else?
Well, just to remind you, best times of all time, 2:14.04, current world record, Bridget Kosgei, Chicago 2019. Then you have to go back to Paula Radcliffe, those magical figures of 2:15.25, 2003 in London. And then after that, it's Kosgei again, 2:16.02. So those are the top 3 times of all time, 2:14.04, 2:15.25, 2:16.02.
2:20 used to be a special barrier, a very tough barrier. I can tell you that 49 women now have broken 2:20, and that is very soon going to hit the half century and more, because this young lady, Tigist Assefa, there is no doubt, is heading for a big, big time below 2:20. She's 28 years old, and to go from 2:34 down to 2:15 or 2:16. This is only her 2nd ever marathon. It's like she's woken up a different person this morning. They must have been so excited, her coach and training support group, to have seen her training unfold in recent weeks, because they must have known. You know pretty well from what you're doing in training the sort of times you're capable of, and what she must have been doing in training over the last few weeks, last few months, must have been something quite unrecognizable for what she'd achieved in the marathon distance prior to this. 2:34 in Riyadh back in March. Here we are, what, some 6 months later, just over 6 months later, because it was on the 5th of March, and she is a different athlete altogether. But doesn't look under any threat, Chris. Almost 41 kilometers behind her. She's inside the last mile. About 1.3 kilometers to go. Checks her watch again there. She must be, the adrenaline must be pumping, because she will know full well, in her head, blah, 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 simple maths. Gosh, I'm going to go under 2:20. I'm going to go under 2:17. I'm going to run 2:15, 16 here. And that gives you that little extra spring. It carries you through the latter stages. there is always in the back of your mind that little bit of adrenaline that is helping you through when you've got enormous fatigue in your legs. You're dragging yourself through the bell on the last lap of a tough track race, or you're entering the last kilometer of a very tough road race. If you know you're heading for something very special, it gives you enormous reinforcement to enable you to keep plonking one foot in front of the other and push on.
And she is pushing on. She's still looking pretty fresh, isn't she? No sign of fatigue. The arms are still working really hard. The legs are still pretty high. The cadence is holding up well. And she's got a kilometer to go into Unter den Linden. And that's a great sight, isn't it, Tim? If you're running the Berlin Marathon, the Brandenburg Gate comes into view for the first time. Less than a K to go.
Isn't that a lovely goal in the distance? And you know how when you get road miles that are dead straight, there's this sort of optical illusion thing. Athletes kick for the line, and yet it's still 600-700 meters away, half a mile away. Well, there's an element of that here, but when you've got 41.5 kilometers behind you, I think you're not too worried about 400 meters or so. And that is a lovely sight for her. It's almost like an early finish line, isn't it? The Brandenburg Gate beckons her. Tigist Assefa. Certainly unheralded, certainly not expected to challenge for a place on the rostrum, never mind about a win on the streets of Berlin in this 48th edition of the BMW-sponsored race. Purring along like a fine sedan here is Tigist Assefa. No other women in sight behind her. Really good national standard runners all around her, almost international standard, because if she does break 2:16, and the sunshine is on the figure of Tigist Assefa. In the history of the World Marathon Majors, this is one of the most unexpected runs ever, if not the most unexpected. This is a run to give all athletes who have considered themselves as athletes who finished down the field, I'm an also-ran. That is what people tell themselves in the back of their minds. I finished down the field, I don't win races. Well, this is a run of such astonishingly inspired ability that it will dispel those thoughts. People can dream even more after watching a run like this. Tigist Assefa pushes for the line, less than 100 meters to go, and look at the clock, 2:15:24. She's gonna smash 2:16. She still looks calm. She's not stressed. She drives towards the line. Now she smiles. She can celebrate a few yards early. Crunches through the tape there. 2:15:38 unofficially. The third fastest athlete in history. And with massive open road behind her to her next rival. That is a performance of dreams. Her manager, Gianni Di Madonna. He was a great international athlete himself many years ago. I know, because I raced him. I think I probably finished behind him a few times. He celebrates yet again, as does the coach. Unbelievable. Quite unbelievable. And of course, the Berlin course record of Gladys Cherono was 2:18:11. Well, that winning time there has smashed it by about 2.5 minutes. We'll give you the exact seconds of improvement. And I'll tell you what, Chris, we saw Kipchoge bouncing around and celebrating with the Kenyan colours across his shoulders. I think when you win a race like this, with that sort of a run, the adrenaline enables you to be fresh and recover very, very quickly.
100%, 100%. It's that winning feeling. She'll feel tired tomorrow, but she can forget about tomorrow. It's all about enjoying the moment today. She is absolutely delighted. She was way down, and here is our second finisher.
Yes, and that second finisher is Rosemary Wanjiru. Well, I talked about her 15 or 20 minutes ago towards the latter stage of this race because we hadn't seen her. Well, she has judged it to perfection. She's a debutante, and this will be arguably the quickest debut in history from Rosemary Wanjiru. What a run it is from her, the 27-year-old. She's a great track athlete. Finished up 4th in the World Championships, 10,000 metres in years gone by. She's run 30:35 for 10,000. She's a 65-minute half marathon runner. But now she is a marathon runner of the very highest caliber, and she's got a race on her hands too, because Eliud has finished quickly. She's a 2:22 performer, both of them way under 2:20, 2:18 exactly that for Wanjiru, 2:18.03 arguably for Eliud. Look at the smiles, look at the celebrations. It's a cliche to say it's a dream come true, but these athletes are inspired by dreams day after day, week after week, month after month of monastic lifestyle, tough training, sacrifices galore. And now those are rewarded in spectacular style here in Berlin. 3rd place, 2:18.03. I'll have to go back into my stats, Chris, but that is one of the fastest ever 3rd places. Goodness me. Berlin magic in capitals today. We're used to it, of course. We're used to Berlin delivering. Just occasionally they get rain, they have some tough days. But today, conditions perfect. Everything has come together. And it's why athletes, Chris, come back to Berlin again and again. Because year after year, with very few exceptions, this city provides the stage for the most wonderful performances. Performances that deserve Oscars and awards galore. And for many of the athletes, those awards are just, in inverted commas, personal best, but for a special few, they are national records, massive personal best. That, of course, is a Ethiopian record for Asefa. There is the finishing form of the 48th BMW Berlin Marathon women's champion, Tigist Asefa, becoming the 3rd fastest woman in history. You could almost say it's the beginning of a new era, because Asefa, in only her 2nd marathon, has lopped something like 19 minutes off her lifetime best. I mean, it is just...
You need to say that again, Tim, please.
I don't... 19 minutes. That's, gosh, the speed they were moving at, what, 3:15 per kilometre? Quick, Chris. I don't know, what's that, about 6k faster than she's ever run before, 7k faster than she's ever run before. And at 28, she's got young marathon legs, as Tigist Asefa, and many more great races ahead of her, surely.
Hope you're enjoying these pictures from our helicopter today down on the Reichstag. You can see the Brandenburg Gate, the green top of the Brandenburg Gate, the Tiergarten away to the right. And what a day it's been. We're just catching our breath and still pinching ourselves really here in Berlin. We've seen another world record, a 12th world record on this course. And once again went to Eliud Kipchoge. Well, let's just remind ourselves of the key moments in the race. It went out at lightning quick pace. Adola was dropped pretty early on. Kipchoge went through halfway, remember, in 59:51. Unbelievable. More than making up for what happened here 4 years ago. And the winning time, 2:01:39. Beaten by 30 seconds. Here he is.
Eliud, what an extraordinary performance. Another world record. Did you plan to go out so fast, 59:51 for the first half?
I was planning to go to the 60-50, 60-40, but all in all, my legs were running actually very fast. And I thought, let me just try to run 2 hours flat. But all in all, I'm happy with the performance.
By your standards, the second half, you were slowing down a little, not by any other person's standards. Was it tough in the second half?
Actually, it's the start. I think the first half was really very fast. We went too fast, and you need to actually, it takes energy from the muscles.
You've knocked another chunk off your own world record, and it's here in Berlin again. Can you improve still more?
Still more. In my legs are still more, and I hope future still great. Yes.
Those legs of yours and your body still feel.
Still more. In my legs are still more, and I hope future still great. Yes.
Those legs of yours and your body still feel.
Quicker than he'd planned.
Yeah, there is the top 10 in the men's race then, and Eliud Kipchoge head and shoulders above the rest. Mark Correa rallying really well to come home in second place. We virtually saw nothing of him throughout the race. Tadao Abate coming through, and then they came through thick and fast after that, and then the rest of the top 20. Good showing from the Japanese contingent. They had a very, very strong showing here today. Ryo Takaku coming home in 18th place. He was the leading Japanese runner. Hafton Welde from Germany, the top German finisher today in just outside 2:09. Many of the leading German runners here today not competing because of the European Championships in Munich just a few weeks ago.
Well, athletes continue to pour along the course. Great national standard runners coming home in very, very respectable times. The gun went 24 minutes ago now. I can tell you that Kira Damato came home in 2 hours 21:48. It wasn't to be a US record day for her today. Maybe the decision to accept an invitation for a United States vest at the World Championships just some 8 weeks ago was one that she's paid for today. I think many would admire that decision. She had a great run in Eugene. At 2 weeks' notice, she came 8th in the World Championships in 2:23. But undoubtedly, that run would have been in her legs on this occasion. Well, Berlin delivered today in spectacular fashion. The favourites introduced to the crowd before the gun were
Jim
for a
Getani
shock.
GR
It was
sexy
an
boy,
athlete
the baddest boy,
Tigist to safe in the
alongside
vest.
South Africana, the African sauce, the
improved
only
by
hot
some
sauce in
19
Africa, your
minutes
girlfriend,
on a personal
favorite
best.
sauce, lest you forget. You're done.
African sauce.
Yeah, man.
What's up?
Mi niko fiti, tuko in the month of September.
We are in the month of September. And what does September mean?
It means msichana anafaa, you have to take your man out on a date.
And that's why I tell you, wasichana ni wakora.
Wasichana ni wakora.
Fuck shorties all day any day. Because no lady, no woman has texted me, hey, can we go out?
Miss Jessica, Africana, kuja come outside.
Nyinyi ni wakora. Nyinyi ni mayakuza. And mimi nasema
wallahi. OG,
come fight me.
So hii wiki imekuwa wiki very interesting. pale Twitter kumekuwa na vita ya Commonwealth nations.
Commonwealth.
Yes.
Commonwealth nations
ni zile in short ni nations ambazo zime colonize na watu British. Zilikuwa. Sasa wame come together.
They've ganged up.
They have formed a team.
Wame together like butt cheeks.
Yes.
Wameshikana kama mbili.
After they had the demise of the Queen of England.
That's sorry for colonization.
Sasa watu wanakasirika. Watu wa Commonwealth nations wanakasirika kwa sababu watu wanasema ati RIP Queen. Watu wako we ancestors wangekuwa hapa. Wasikie vile unasema wewe.
Babu yako alitandikwa bana juu huyo.
If my great grandmother was here, angetupatia hot slap. Anasema what nikiurauga we. Unasema nini?
Kwa nini?
Utasema kitu kama hiyo mbele yao. Ati RIP. Na venye waliteswa. So hiyo ndio kitu imekuwa sana kwa common uko Twitter. Watu wanapiga wanasema nikikuta umetype RIP.
Mimi kwanza watu kwa status yangu. Unaweza sema ni direct.
Unaweza sema wanaishigi huko.
Direct relatives. In fact, mtu anaweka status, anaweka RIP Queen, afu anaweka paka emoji za kulia.
No, so unakapo waitage.
And it's always women. Women are dramatic. We give you the crown for being dramatic. Anyway, talking about women. Nilikuwa naona video ya Aziad akidance. My friend Odem, Aziad ana dance. Huyu akikupatia ile suguli, akiwa anakupatia ile suguli, utaachwa kama unajisukuma robe. Unajipaka robe kwa sababu
ile mbio umepeleka.
Ama unajipapasa na ice cubes.
Kama umia. Usicheze.
Aziad bon ana dance vigorously. Ana dance style nyingine yani.
Ile niliona hiyo video anaenda hivi anafanya tu.
Huyu anaweza kukufanyia hivi mara moja. Damu is mad.
Akipeka mzee. Mzee anazirai hapo. Hakuna vile unabaki.
Mzee gets laid to rest.
Mzee unalala mapema. Mapema ndio best.
You come and go in the same statement. You just come and go.
You come and go.
Yes, oh my goodness.
Speaking of madem. Iko hivi. Kama unaweza lala kwa dem hadi wote. Hadi unangorota hivi. My bro, unafaa uingie jeshi.
Mimi I'm signing up for the military. Kama ni hivyo
unafaa uingie KDF. Uko pale Mogadishu.
Kwanza line ya kwanza.
In fact unakuwa the front line pale.
Kama Uria.
Oh my goodness. Kama Uria weka hapo mbele kama commander. Mapema ndio best.
Kwa sababu you taking a risk.
You're taking a risk. Utalala aje? Kama unaota huko.
Mpaka unaota.
In
fact watu paka wadanyamba.
The audacity. Mimi audacity mnionyeshe penye wanatoka kwa sababu I need to see where the audacity inatoka. Wanaume wako na audacity huko nje. Inaona kama mimi. Mimi ninaweza hata sijui. Ati nisikia ngongo.
Unafanya nini?
Nahepa bwana.
Unahepa unaenda.
Unahepa. Si unacheza tactics unaingia nyasi. Nilikuja kuona demo unapembeleza dem. Demo anaonanga una akili.
Wacha mchezo.
Kwa sasa zile tuseme mnaachana. Akwambia Africana. It is not going well with us. Sijui. Mimi kama Africano unafaa uandike K. Okay. Wanaume usikae hapa ati why are you doing this?
Na hiyo okay.
Ni okay. Big O alafu K.
Hii okay, you look needy. You look unajua hakuna kitu mbaya kwa dem kama mwanaume mwenye anakaa needy. Mwanaume unakaa like you need a woman. Not a woman. And that girl son. Take you need yourself. The only person you need is God.
Facts my friend. Facts.
Huyo dem wacha aende.
She was not meant to be.
Umepeana sub, utapewa sub ya mwingine. Hii nilikwambia hii.
Your deputy ndo ameelevatiwa. Umetoka when you outgoing. deputy wako huko unamjua. The incoming.
You know Uhuru Ruto.
Uhuru
wanafanyia.
Hiyo ndo tactic imetumiwa hapo.
Tactics.
Theory.
Huyo wako in fact ni bed to bed midfielder. Anatoka kwako.
Bed to bed midfielder. No joke. Still.
Hakuna watu wanajua kuchocha story kama Mama Adhe. Manze juzi mimi nimekaa hivi, tumekaa sitting room hapo hivyo, mimi mzae na Madhe. Mzae ananiambia wewe unajua kijana wewe siku hizi unakuwa kichwa ngumu na kuambia kitu usikii. Nini? Wacha mamangu asikie hivyo. Hata juzi aliniambia ati anaweza tushikanisha sio wili atupige.
Chumvi my friend.
Mimi nikasema hivyo saa ngapi? Lakini kwani nangojea ati nijitetee.
Uliuliza hata.
Jamaa alikuwa shakunja hivi. Mimi hapo hivyo.
Ushaingia jasi.
Unasikia ile quote kuchana mbuga.
Kuchana mbuga.
Kuchana mbuga. Kuchana mbuga. Niku. Mpaka mbuga inakuwa chanad. Yani nyasi zinasimama vile umepita na nguvu.
Kama cartoon venye ilikuwa inafanyanga.
Unaona zile. Hiyo ndio kuchana mbuga.
Okay. Wewe kisimama hapo.
Kweli hawa wahenga. Hawakustuka. Hawakufanya nini?
Hawakustuka.
Hawakufanya hivyo nini? Hiyo maneno yao venye wakasema maneno mingi hapo. So as we wind up, as we conclude, I'd like to leave you with a quote. African. So nikisema kitu unasema I want to take this as slow as possible.
Ndio emphasis.
It is only during a stampede that a woman with big buttocks realizes that she's carrying a problem.
Facts, my friend. Wisdom, my friend.
Wisdom. Think about it. Then comment here below, my friend.
Another thing. Ya mwisho ya kumalizia. Hii maisha by the way ukiwa na aibu huwezi enjoy. Stay shameless. Stay shameless.
Niko na kitu kingine nilikuwa nataka kukwambia. Relating to that, kitu umesema. Enjoy your youth. Mon sai the loudest you can. Because ukioa itakuwa kimya. Ukipata watoto itakuwa kimya. Ama ushaisikia sauti kwenu? Unasikia sauti kwenu?
I was not here. Nisikuwa hapa bana. I was not here.
Ama niulize mzae.
Usija. Kama unataka kuenda unasema tu sai. Okay, ndo kumwambia kitu.
My goodness. Babangu kesho wala kitu. Ai bana. Lakini kwa nini hatusikia sauti?
Uwezi utaona. Fine. Bwana ujig.
Mimi by the way nikiwa. Mimi nataka room kwa mbali.
In fact, naona nikichenga nyumba. Room yao wengine iko hapa. Inacheza hapa. Yangu lazima ikuwe kama ni corridor.
Uko mwisho.
Uko.
Sababu unaweza hata mimi unaweza kuta hiyo siku ndio nimeshikwa na mahajab. Nasema ni hapo.
Ogo.
Mama. Mama Jerry, nyapo ni hau. Hau.
Haya. Crazy.
Ni mbaya. Ati unamwambia ni hau. Unasisitiza. Emphasis. Hapo mtoto wako anakusikia hapa.
Inaweza kuwa hivi.
Hapo anasemanga senye kuna wageni hapo.
Nisa kazaba kofi mimi. Hata mami ndio mami tati waje. Wewe kijana. Wewe ngoja unaona.
Usione ile video. Katoto kanapiga kofi kanapiga munduru na kichwa. Munduru
ni.
Bako sasa. Unajua ni bontao.
Mimi bondo kishago.
Munduru ni ile sama ya kichwa.
Unajaiona? Yo soma.
Kingine anawa kichwa kiparangoto.
Sina habari.
Anyways, as I was saying, nilikuwa naona video ya Aziad. Aziad ana dance vigorously. Udem ana dance vigorously. Udem
the limits. It's what he came to do, and he has done it. Is that a world record that will remain intact for decades to come, or will he come back again and have another go? We think there's still, even at 2:01:09, still room for improvement. Presentation of the medals and prize money will be getting underway very shortly.
If you don't know Berlin, get here. By hook or by crook, come to Berlin. Enjoy the flat running, the glorious parks. The Tiergarten is the most wonderful place to have a walk, a jog, do some hard training if you want. It's a city made for cycling. There's allowances made for cyclists on all the roads and the trails through the open spaces. It is absolutely superb. That smile of Eliud Kipchoge. How many times have we seen that, Chris?
You never tire of it.
And he never tires.
No.
You know, he always raises his arm and celebrates in the last few meters and looks fresh. He has this ability to just reject fatigue. Seemingly so, in a way.
The Berlin Bear. There's just a shot of Valentin Dentreux, who's a part of the Eliud Kipchoge management team. An integral part of the sub-2 attempt as well in Vienna. Patrick Sang, there he is, there's Valentin. So preparations just getting underway for the presentation of the medals. We've heard from Eliud, there's Patrick Sang just going in front of camera. All smiles, so much work behind the scenes. And so nice to hear Eliud Kipchoge in the press conference on Friday paying tribute to his team. He was asked about his wife and children. Of course, they're the most important people in his life, but they're back in Kenya watching this on television. But he said, I've brought my team with me. It's my family, it's my second family. They are with me. And he couldn't have done it without them. The dietitians, the physios, the masseurs, the manager, the stats guys and women, feeding back all the information. And the net result is a world record.
And Chris, amidst it all, so many other stats of significance. A new Canadian record of 2:23:12 by Natasha Wodak. Down the field, but a fabulous run from Tasha Wodak. They'll be punching the air in celebration in Vancouver and Toronto, all over Canada as well today.
Time for the presentations then for the men's race. Tadu Abate in third place from Ethiopia. Performed brilliantly in the second half of the race. "25 years old. It's his 10th marathon today. He was 4th last year on debut, so one better today. And he makes the podium here for the first time, 2:06:28 his time. Mark Correa came strong in the latter stages too to take second place. Just outside his lifetime best, age 37. Coincidentally the same age as Eliud Kipchoge himself. He will be picking up a prize of $15,000 for his second place. Second place for Mark Correa on debut here in Berlin.
48th edition of the BMW Berlin Marathon with a new world record time, 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds. Congratulations to Eliud Kipchoge.
Simply without parallel. Superhuman. He can barely walk, but who can blame him? 2:01.09, a new world record, 30 seconds off his previous mark set here 4 years ago. $30,000 for winning the race, another 50 for cracking the world record, and every single dollar richly deserved. A race director's dream, a marketeer's dream, and an inspiration to men, women, children all over the world. He's a humble farmer at heart, but he's a world-class athlete and a really nice fella.
And Chris, I wondered before this race if it would be Kipchoge against the clock, and that's the way it turned out. Look at that winning margin, 4 minutes 49 seconds. That must be one of the biggest winning margins in World Marathon Majors history. Valentin Troll, his manager, said he was motivated by very fast times. That's why he didn't go for New York.